Hi, my name is James. This is James Loves Games, and welcome to the show. It is August 8th, 6:30 in the stinking morning. How we doing, everybody? Today, for episode 3 of JLG Pod, I'd like to take some time and talk about remakes. It seems like every, 5 seconds, some game developer is talking about their new remake or a game that they knew and found out that you loved playing in your youth. And so they're going to cash in on it. But the funny thing about remakes is that it's kind of a weird symbiotic thing for everybody. It's good for the gamers and it's good for the developers. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So, the games industry, they get a lot of, obviously they make a lot of money. It's actually, I don't remember what exactly the numbers were, but I know that they make more from games than movies and all other forms of entertainment combined. I mean, it's huge. It's undeniably huge how much money there is to be made. What's more, game companies more than anybody, I think, like to take advantage of gamers' nostalgia, and revisiting old classics is a great way to do that. But the thing is, you would think people would be wise to this and see it as the cash grab that it really is. But you know what? We want the remakes because we like the nostalgia. And so it's really, it's really a case of the market meeting the demand of the market. I don't know. I'm not an economist, so but it's a good thing. I have been really enjoying a lot of remakes over the past few years, and it seems like the last 5 years in particular, we've had a lot of remakes, much more than normal. It's become kind of like a more common thing, and people have come to expect, that companies are going to remake this game or that game. So I kind of wanted to just dip my toe into the remake conversation a little bit, and I definitely want to get you guys' thoughts on this as well. What do you think about the current state of remakes being made for everything under the sun? Obviously, some games are more deserving of remakes than others. In particular, I feel like games from the PS1 N64 era are probably most in dire need of a remake, simply because of the visual quality of the games at that time. I think that Super Nintendo was really kind of the peak of 2D graphics, and you can go back and play a lot of Super Nintendo games and they still look really good and they play really well. But once you skip over into that next generation, the first generation of 3D game consoles, things really are just, they're literally rough around the edges. I mean, it's jagged, pointy shapes offending the senses, offending the eyeballs. You're getting pointy polygons shoved into your eyes every time you play a PS1 game or an N64 game. And to the point, it's pretty hilarious. But at any rate, I've got kind of a tentative list of some of the more memorable remakes over the last few years and kind of what they did right, what they did wrong. And so I'll just go ahead and start the list off. Back in 2016, we got a remake of Doom. And I see this one as kind of a watershed moment for game remakes because it was one of those, I don't think back in that year, which as I think about it was 7 years ago, which is crazy to me. I don't think that, remakes were really on everybody's mind at the time. And they really knocked it out of the park with that one. I played, that was one of the rare games I actually played all the way through and beat before I started doing a YouTube channel and beating games for all of y'all. So it was a rare thing for me to beat a game without an audience, without the pressures of people watching me. But, it was it did the original justice, but also pushed the series in a whole new direction in a way that I think everybody can agree was really, really awesome. The soundtrack was awesome. I mean, obviously, visually, it was a huge upgrade from the original Doom and every iteration of Doom there forward. And I think it really was a true remake in that it didn't just take the original game and give it a new lick of paint. It kind of redid the whole story and made it more enjoyable for modern sensibilities. And that's kind of a distinction that I really wanted to make between remakes and remasters, because a lot of times they get those two words kind of get conflated and used interchangeably, and I feel like that's doing the actual remakes a disservice, because a remaster, you're just taking the original game, putting a new lick of paint on it, and going with it. Whereas a remake, you really are, remaking the game from the ground up, and usually I would think putting a new spin on it. And I think like Final Fantasy VII Remake is a perfect example of a real remake. You've got it's not just like the original game that looks better. You've changed the story, you've added voices, you've taken the direction of everything in a whole new direction. But and then you've got games like Demon Souls for PS5, which, I mean, I loved it. You can't really call it a remake because it is the exact same game. Like, the underlying code of the game has been untouched, but the visual quality of it has increased to the point where it's easy to be fooled into thinking that this is an actual remake. But it really, I mean, when you really look at it, it's a remaster. And I'm sure we could probably debate this back and forth into eternity, but I really see it as a remaster because it really only deals with better graphics. But it's a huge difference. I mean, it's to this day, it was like 3 years ago, but like Demon Souls, a 3-year-old game, is still possibly the best looking game I've ever seen. I mean, they really knocked that one out of the park. And I don't know if they were able to do that simply because they left the underlying code untouched and didn't need to put any work into anything else except how the game looked, or if the level structure of the game really lended them that opportunity to take full advantage of graphics without having to worry about load times and things. It's a very kind of compartmentalized game. But my goodness, what a revelation. And that one, I mean, that was such a change that it pushed me to want to play all of the Souls games. I wanted to play Dark Souls before it came out, and I'm glad I did because it's really changed my whole perspective on gaming, playing through all of FromSoft's Soulsborne games, and I've really enjoyed all of them. But Demon Souls stands out without a doubt as the best looking one, to the point where people refer to an old classic getting a shiny new lick of paint, getting the blue point treatment. And I don't know if that's something that people say, but I'm going to make it a thing. Let's give it the blue point treatment, where you're not touching anything in the underlying game. And there really wasn't anything wrong with the code or the gameplay or the story of Demon Souls. It was a good thing that they left it completely untouched. But it definitely needed a graphical upgrade. I believe Demon Souls came out in 2009. I'm not sure. My camera just went like totally bonkers and out of focus. Okay, I think I got too close to it. Was the deal? But it what an upgrade they've made over that like 11-year, 12-year period. Jonathan C, good morning. Jonathan C says, hey, James in chat, as usual, can't stay, but we'll rewatch tomorrow. Demon Souls was amazing. And like I said, I'm glad that didn't change anything. And so I really think that the distinction does need to be made from a categorical standpoint between an actual remake and a remaster. because some games need to be remade and some games really just need a remaster. Jonathan C. also says it's 9:40 p.m. over here. My goodness. It must be weird for you to see me in the evening as opposed to while you should be working. Must be incredibly liberating. But thanks for popping in. And so to give you a, Doom versus Demon Souls is a good example of the difference between the two. Because, I mean, the story in Doom is pretty much left unsaid. The original Doom, you pop in, you hear some weird, funky, pixelated guitar music, and you just start shooting demons. Nobody questioned that back in the day. It was a 3D game. Like, you could move around inside a 3D space, and it was incredible and violent. And, if you just would have given that game better graphics, I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody had already done that at that point. Modders had already done that up to that point. But, Doom needed like a refreshing from top to bottom, and it worked really well. And then there's these games that kind of ride the line between remake and remaster. And I'm looking at the Resident Evil franchise, specifically Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, which all got the remake treatment. And these are proper remakes because changes were made to the game, the gameplay itself, and not just the looks of it. And it seemed to me, I played through most of the Resident Evil 2 remake. I have a goal. I would like to go back and play through Resident Evil 2 on stream. I played through it, and I kind of started it a little bit after I started this channel, but I didn't have much of a following, so I was pretty much just playing by myself. But, I enjoyed it a lot, but I'd like to go back and give that one a proper shake for all the people that have joined James Loves Games in the past few years. But, they took the game and they gave it a huge graphical upgrade, which, PS1 era games, I mean, Resident Evil 4 was a PS2 game, but PS1 era games of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, they desperately needed it. And so, but, they added better voices, new voices. I'm pretty sure they added new parts to the levels as well. At least in Resident Evil 2, I seem to recall there were some parts, and it had been a while since I'd played the original Resident Evil 2, but I seem to recall that there were new areas that weren't previously in the original Resident Evil 2, or at least the layout of the police station was slightly different. And again, it had been decades since I'd played the original. But, yeah, they changed enough to make it a real remake, and boy, were they successful. I mean, these were beloved games, and Capcom really knocked it out of the park. I think the jury's still out on Resident Evil 3 remake. I don't know that it was as beloved. It's kind of like the middle child of this trilogy. Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4. 2, huge hit. 3, kind of lukewarm reception. 4, arguably even bigger hit. But actually, they dropped the sales numbers for the Resident Evil franchise a couple days ago, and like that series has sold a ton, obviously, but like a ton. So many games. I think Resident Evil 4, at least the remake. Let me see. I've got the numbers in front of me. Yeah, Resident Evil 4 remake has sold over 5 million copies. And that came out, back in February? It was February or March. So that game's been out like 6 months and sold 5 million copies already, which is nuts to me. Obviously, the original Resident Evil 4 came out on multiple platforms. I think it was PS2, GameCube, maybe even Xbox. I don't remember. I might be misremembering that, but 17 million copies of Resident Evil 4, the original, which is nuts. That's so many. But Resident Evil 2 remake, okay, huge hit, 11 million copies of that game. So it's insane. how successful these remakes have been, and how much they've sort of revitalized the Resident Evil franchise, because it was kind of going off the rails with Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, and you know, 4 was probably my favorite in the series, and then 5 came out, and I was like, okay, I don't know why Chris needs biceps the size of, an oil drum. And then it got really kind of action focused. And then 6 came out, and it was like, you can't even say it jumped the shark. Like, it went beyond the most ridiculous action movie I've ever seen. It was like Fast and the Furious meets Live Free or Die Hard and quick time events out the wazoo. I mean, it was weird. And then they were like, here's Resident Evil 7, and it's first person. You're in the house with a crazy demented family. And then, Resident Evil 2 remake. Oh, this game is good. And then Resident Evil Village. You guys know the story. I don't need to go into the history of Resident Evil franchise, but the remakes have done a lot for that series. I think if we just had 7 and just had 8, I think if we didn't have those remakes, we wouldn't have had that Shadows of Rose DLC for Resident Evil Village with the third person over the shoulder view, which really revitalized that game. I still need to go back and play through Resident Evil Village in third person, because I said I was going to do that and I never did. I really like the Shadows of Rose DLC though. It was very good. Another remake that I thoroughly enjoyed, that I felt was totally warranted. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on Nintendo Switch. Link's Awakening was one of my favorite Zelda games. And it's kind of weird because I feel like Link's Awakening doesn't get enough credit in the Zelda series fandom. Ocarina of Time gets a lot of the praise as as the best. But, Link's Awakening, I'm super biased because I played it a whole lot. It was on Game Boy, and that was like my jam back in the day. But it was amazing. You had like the basic gameplay of A Link to the Past from Super Nintendo, but it gave it this new twist, collecting musical instruments to wake up a giant whale who lives in an egg in a volcano. I mean, it was weird. It was very weird, but it was fun. It was awesome. And the remake really, it improved upon everything. And I suppose if you really got down to it, this one too might be considered a remaster over a remake. It had been way too long since I'd played the original to tell if much had changed on, gameplay wise or world wise or things like that. But it was definitely, I think they changed enough to call it a real remake. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think if you slept on Link's Awakening on the Switch, go back and give that one a go. It's definitely worth your time. As for Final Fantasy VII Remake, this is absolutely a real remake. Like, they changed a whole bunch of stuff, much to my chagrin. I mean, you regulars of my channel know how I feel about Final Fantasy VII Remake. And as a fan of the original, as a super fan of the original, I was thoroughly disappointed in Final Fantasy VII Remake in a lot of different ways. But most of which was how you take a game that everybody likes and then you say, here, we remade it. And then you're only giving us like a third of the original. Like, you're chopping it up into 3 full-priced games. Like, what are you smoking over there at Square Enix? But people ate it up. And that was red flag number 1. But and I understand there's all these technical limitations. It's a huge game. You're not going to fit it on one disc, blah, blah, blah. I remember when I got Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, and it came in a little disc package, whatever you call it, disc case. It was like this thick because it had like 4 discs in it. I mean, Final Fantasy VII had 3, but I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy VIII had 4 discs, Maybe it was 3 too. I don't remember. There were a lot of discs, okay? So you could do that today. You could put a lot of discs in there. Or most people just download them. I mean, you could download like half a terabyte worth of games for one game. I suppose that makes sense, them chopping it up into pieces, but still doesn't sit right with me. The original was fine as one title. Why chop it up? But you know, I didn't really like the voice acting. I didn't like the dialogue. And you guys know, and they changed enough stuff to make it to where it didn't feel like my Final Fantasy VII. And, as funny as that sounds, like I have some sort of ownership over it. But you know, it is what it is. It's still a huge hit. Everybody's looking forward to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So that's great. I hope everybody enjoys it. I probably won't, but here we are. It's a rare miss for me. Just because I don't know. Just didn't like it. Just didn't like it. But that's just how it is sometimes. Also, Last of Us Part 1. That did not need to be remade. I would call that one a remaster as well. I feel like that one, you know, game developers, they ride a fine line between giving us what we want and obvious cash grab, right? And I got onto the Last of Us bandwagon very late. I was a late adopter to the Last of Us series, and still, you guys know, like, not my favorite. It was okay. And, you know, playing a game made in like 2013 in 2020, obviously you're going to think, what is this? This is not that great, because things have developed since then. Things have improved graphically and gameplay wise. And when you play a game, you're really playing like a time capsule. You're playing this thing that's frozen in time, and it wasn't the best. But, you know, Last of Us Part 2 came out. I played that one. It was a little bit after it came out, but I played it, and it was clearly an improvement upon the first one. Now, I played The Last of Us Remastered, which is what it was called. So they had The Last of Us for PS3, and then The Last of Us Remastered for PS4. I think I have that right. Did The Last of Us come out on PS3? Now I'm questioning myself. The Last of Us. That is not what I wanted. The Last of Us. I should have done my research before I started this. The Last of Us. Yeah, that was on PS3. Okay, I'm not crazy. So The Last of Us was on PS3. That's why I look like, you know, jagged nightmare. And then The Last of Us Remastered was the remastered version that came out on PS4. Updated graphics. Looks better. That's the one that I played. And it was like the game was already remastered. You don't need to give it a new lick of paint. But it was obvious when The Last of Us Part 2 came out, everybody went gaga over it, because obviously it looks way better. Controls better. They added new stuff. And so, oh, that's cool. And so they were like, we made a lot of money from The Last of Us Part 2. Why don't we take the first one, which we've already remastered, and call it The Last of Us Part 1 to match the graphics of Part 2 and sell everybody this game for the third time in a row. Septimus 07, hey, good to see you. Good morning. So that one felt a little cash grabby to me. I feel like they didn't really add too much to that game. It was just like a second coat of paint within like a 8-year time span, which is way too many. It's way too many. Like, it's obvious. We know what you're doing. Naughty Dog. You earned your name. You earned your moniker, Naughty Dog. Also, Dead Space. So that was one that probably needed a remake as well. The original was, I mean, it didn't look bad, but I'd say like PS1 to PS3 games are kind of all in that zone where it's like, yeah, this could look a little better when you're playing it in 2023. And so I'd heard good things about I played the original Dead Space back in the day, but not a whole lot. But I'd heard good things about the remake. But you know, EA, so I don't want to throw any money their way unless I absolutely have to. So I never played it, but it looked good. It did look better. So we've talked about sort of the big remakes in the last few years. Oh, and I didn't mention ActRaiser Renaissance because really, I'm pretty sure me and 4 other people are the only ones that played it on planet Earth. I'm a huge fan of ActRaiser, the original on Super Nintendo. And when I saw that they had remade it for modern systems, and it plays like an indie game, you know, and if you're unfamiliar with ActRaiser, it's awesome. It's basically like a god simulator / platformer. And you go back and forth between these two game modes where, you know, it's like a classic Super Nintendo era platformer. You go across, you fight enemies, you fight the boss. And after you beat a level, you unlock a new area on the map, and you're looking down on the world, and you grow villages and grow people and fight off monsters to protect them. And as your village flourishes, you become more powerful. And it was really cool. And I actually got into ActRaiser way late in life. I never played it on the Super Nintendo originally. I played it on an emulator many years later. I own the game now on the Super Famicom, so don't worry there. I have it. I legally purchased that game. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I beat that one, and it was really fun. And so I've got the remake. I've played it a little bit. They've changed it enough. It's definitely a remake. Like, there's a ton of new stuff. It feels like a different game, but I still think I prefer the original just because of nostalgia. I feel like they changed enough things where it was like, this feels too different. Maybe it's a case where like the remake didn't turn out so well as the original did, which is kind of the worry for some games. You know, that's why there's some games I'm like, you don't really need to remake this because you don't really need to mess with perfection. Chrono Trigger being one of those. But I'm going to be talking about that on Thursday, my remake wish list. So I'm not going to touch it right now. Let's talk about upcoming remakes that have been confirmed. They are made or in development, and they are coming out soon to a console near you. So we've got some that are just blips on my radar. I never played the original, so I'm not like super hyped for it. Alone in the Dark being one of those. I've heard good things about it. I know some people who are excited about the remake coming out. Cool. That's good. I like when people are excited about things. I like it when you like things and are happy and looking forward to it. So that's cool. Star Ocean Second Story R, though, is one that I am looking forward to, and a classic JRPG that I never played. I never played any of the Star Ocean series, as shocking as that may sound. You know, as much as I like to talk about how much I love JRPGs and have played them most of my life, never played Star Ocean. And when they had the Nintendo Direct, I guess it was last month, and they showed revealed for the first time Star Ocean Second Story R, which the R stands for remake, which is kind of a silly way to name the game, but whatever. It looked really good. It kind of uses that 2D HD graphical style where you've got like really lush, beautiful, like 3D backgrounds, and the characters are all sprites and everything's super shiny with lots of particle effects. But it looks really good. And, you know, it doesn't look like it's going to rock the world as far as like, you know, game mechanics or graphics or anything like that, but it looks cool. I'm intrigued. So, I'll probably pick that one up at some point. Probably not at launch. We'll see. I'll probably have enough on my plate still, but I'll get to it eventually. Looks good. Star Ocean Second Story R. And it's the second, my understanding is that it's the second Star Ocean game in a long running series of Star Ocean games. That's why it's called Second Story. But you also can pick at the beginning of the game which storyline you want to follow between two main characters, which is pretty cool. That's the kind of game mechanic that you don't really see so much these days, where you can like pick a different character and get a different story, or at least get the story from a different perspective, which is really neat. I feel like they took more risks back in the day game developers. You could look through a library of Super Nintendo games and see a lot of weird, funky stuff. Some of it didn't hit, granted, and I know it takes a lot of time and money to create modern games these days. You don't want to spend like $100 million on a game that's going to be a flop just because you wanted to take some artistic risks. But I kind of miss those days where a developer would just plop out some weird thing and everybody's kind of scratching their heads, but it's really fun and intriguing. But that's kind of a cool game mechanic that I think is neat. Adds some longevity to the game itself, at the very least. So yeah, another big one. Not yet have release date. We don't have a release date yet for this one, but Silent Hill 2 remake, and this one is my understanding. We don't know yet, but my understanding it's going to be a true remake. This is not just a graphical upgrade. I hope, because the controls in that game were garbage water. I also got on the Silent Hill bandwagon very late in life, actually a couple of months ago. So if you were here for that, you know what I'm talking about. But oddly enough, like I was selling some old games at Game Exchange, and I was looking through a lot of the discs I had, and I came across Silent Hill 2, and I don't remember ever playing Silent Hill 2. And so I don't even know how this game came into my possession. It could be a friend lent it to me many years ago, and me being a bad friend forgot to give it back to them. And I've just, conglomerated that game back into my collection. Perhaps that's what happened. I don't know. If you lay claim to this game, please let me know, and I will promptly return it to you. But I've had that happen to me enough times over the years. That's probably just karma working itself out. We'll just say that's what it is. But nevertheless, I had a copy of Silent Hill 2. The nice guy at Game Exchange saw it and was like, this is worth a lot of money, right? I was like, how much money is it worth? And he said, well, let's see how much we'll give you for it here at Game Exchange. And he looked it up on the computer and was like, oh, we'll give you $30 for it. I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a lot. And he said, but you could sell this on eBay and easily get like $120. And he said, we actually have one and we're selling it for $120. And I thought, wow, you guys have a nice little scam going here where you buy a game for $30 and sell it for 4 times what you paid for it. Not a bad system. I can see why you're still in business. Either way, I thought, I'll probably sell this eventually because I have no need for an old PlayStation 2 game. But I thought I'd play through it first just so that I can check that box. And I did. And man, it was aged. It has aged poorly. It was not a fine wine or a cheese. It was an old PS2 game. And it wasn't horrible. I'll say that. Like, it was nice. It was kind of like when you see a meme a whole lot. Like if you saw like all the Breaking Bad memes growing up, and then you finally go back and watch the show Breaking Bad, then you're like, oh, it's that meme. Oh, it's that other meme. Oh, it's that other meme. That's kind of what it felt like. I mean, there's no memes of Silent Hill 2, but there's gaming legends. I think Silent Hill 2 is a gaming legend. And so it was nice to experience all of these events and characters and things that had been floating around the collective gaming consciousness for many, many years. So it was nice. I'm glad I played it, but I am very much looking forward to the remake of Silent Hill 2. I think it's desperately needed. I think it's the perfect candidate for a remake because those old controls are terrible. The game looks like butt. And yeah, those are the main reasons. Soundtrack's killer. Like I listen to the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack regularly while I'm working. And it's really, really good. So don't touch that. You keep your greasy paws off of the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack, you devs remaking the game, because it's perfection. Don't touch it. Don't change a thing. Other than that, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, also supposedly, allegedly getting a remake. We got a trailer. We got a teaser trailer for it a couple years ago. And unfortunately, I had heard from somewhere that one's kind of floating around in development hell and might not make it out. So apparently the folks that were working on it, they made the teaser trailer before they had put any time into actually making the game. So it's like really putting the cart before the horse. I think they were so excited, they just thought, we'll finish it. Let's just make this teaser, and got everybody excited, me in particular, and because I love Knights of the Old Republic. Also, that was a PS2 era game. I believe it was on. I know it was on Xbox because I played it on Xbox. It might have just been Xbox and PC. Was that one on PS2? Knights of the Old Republic. Jamie, pull that up. That one was on. Yeah, that was an Xbox game. Huh. I guess I had an Xbox, so I didn't really look into that. What didn't really concern me that it wasn't on other systems, but I thought that was on PlayStation systems too. But it was on Xbox, the original Xbox. I loved it. It was really fun. It was a cool new thing for Star Wars, especially. They, if you're unfamiliar with the game, it's basically like it's an RPG where you control like a party of people, and I would kind of compare it to games like the Elder Scrolls, like story-wise, the way the story unfolds. You go from place to place and talk to people, and you have sort of like choices and dialogue that affect the world around you and can change the story that you're going through. But combat-wise, it played more like a turn-based strategy game. And so you get your party and you take turns giving them commands, and then they execute those commands. But man, it was really good. It's probably one of my favorite Star Wars IPs because, I mean, one of the things that really bothers me about Star Wars is that, and I harp on this, I feel like I bring this up every time I'm in front of a camera, but Disney has really they've taken the cloth of Star Wars and just wrung out as much as humanly possible out of it, to the point where we're all just flooded with Star Wars stuff. And most of it revolves around the same people, the same places, the same time period, to the point where it's like, can you guys not come up with something original? Knights of the Old Republic was the something original that we all wanted. And so fantastic characters like HK, I think his name was HK88. The robot, he called all the humans meat bags, and he had this really kind of sinister personality where you weren't sure he wasn't going to just like murder everybody. All the humans anyway. It's a fantastic game with a great twist. It's fantastic. It's great. It's great. One of the best. Afroponics, good morning. Good to see you. Thank you for popping in. So we're just talking about some of the remakes that are coming out over the next couple months. So that was Knights of the Old Republic. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. This one is another one. The devs just kind of said, oh, by the way, we're working on this. See you later. And then never showed their face again. I don't know what's up with this. I think everybody wants to know what's up with this. I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan. And Dragon Quest III is highly regarded as one of the best, if not the best in the series. So that one getting the graphical upgrade would be fantastic. If it got a graphical upgrade and they took out the random battles, that would be the pièce de résistance. I think that would make it really good. That would be like a must buy for me for sure. But again, much like KOTOR, they revealed it and then they disappeared for all eternity. So just to have somebody officially say, by the way, we're still working on this game, it does exist, would probably do a lot to assuage a lot of fears that people have and put them at ease. Afroponics, yeah, we've been eating good. We have been eating good. Yeah, I already talked about the ones that have come out in the past few years, but we're kind of like in rumor territory. Like these are ones that are confirmed or, perhaps coming out. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. This one also kind of, I think a lot of people expected it. There were rumors floating around. And I'll tell you what, spoiler alert for Thursday's podcast, but like, I'm glad they're remaking Metal Gear Solid 3. which is what this is. It's a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, if you didn't know. Metal Gear Solid Delta, the third letter of the alphabet. Third or fourth. I don't know. Snake Eater should tell you all you need to know. But it's Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, which is cool. I didn't really get into Metal Gear Solid 3 a whole lot. I want a Metal Gear Solid remake. Let's remake the first one, the original. I mean, the original Metal Gear Solid, not the original Metal Gear. Because for my money, it was the best. It was gameplay was fantastic. The story was weird, but it wasn't like Metal Gear Solid 2 weird, or Metal Gear Solid 4 weird, or Metal Gear Solid 5 weird. It was just right. It was fantastic. I was hooked. That was one of my most anticipated games before it came out, and I gobbled it up with a spoon and binged it at a time when people didn't really binge things, you know. But Metal Gear Solid, that's one of my top 10. Okay, so for Thursday, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 most wanted remakes. Metal Gear Solid is one of them. I need it in my life. Like, give it a graphical upgrade. Give it just a new look of paint, and I would be happy. I think the gameplay stands up for the most part. Some of those boss fights are kind of goofy. I think like the sniper wolf fight was kind of silly. You could do it. And it would still be okay. But I think people would chuckle because it's like, it's like two kids on the playground, like, I got you. No, you didn't. I got you. And like hiding behind trees and stuff. That's like what this sniper fight is like. So she hides behind a pole or something and then pops out and you shoot her and she's like, and then like runs to the side and hides behind another pole. And it's very silly, but still, it was good. It was an emotional moment when you took her out too. Anyway, Metal Gear Solid. I loved it. I need a remake of it. So I know Kojima-san's not in charge of that anymore, but Konami-san, you guys are in charge of it. It's your baby. It's your baby now. Take the wheel and run with it. Give us the Metal Gear Solid remake. Rena, good morning. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. What else do we have? So Metal Gear Solid Delta, anyway, is coming out. People are very excited about it. I'm not really one of them. Again, it's one of those. It's like I'm happy for the people that are looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really cool gaming experience. I hope it's good. I hope it's fun. Same thing with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I know people are losing their minds over it. I have my own games that I'm losing my mind over wanting to play. But Rebirth ain't one of them. But you know, I'm not a mean person. I'm not bitter or anything. It's just not my thing. And I hope that it's really, really good, and I hope everybody really, really enjoys it. But I won't. It's like pickles, okay? Pickles, I hate pickles. They're gross. I don't understand it. And I try about once a year. I'll try a pickle, and I've tried different varieties of pickles. People, it's like one of those foods where people just can't believe you don't like it. And oh, well, you haven't tried this kind of pickle. No, I've tried them all, and they're all just like, why would you ruin a perfectly good cucumber? But that's fine. I don't begrudge people who love pickles. If you like pickles, gobble them up. Preferably not like right next to me, but I don't want them. Enjoy. You like them. You don't need to concern yourself with my lack of, my lack of tastiness for pickles. So enjoy Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's a pickle to me. Most people like pickles. I don't. So there you go. Also, so here's one that's kind of interesting. Tell me what you think of this. I had heard there's rumors floating around. I don't know if they're rumors or if they're actually confirmed. Again, do your research, James. Do some dang research. Okay, so these aren't just rumors. I'm looking this up on the fly. These are not just rumors. This was confirmed October 26, 2022. The Witcher is being remade by, presumably, CD Projekt Red. Yes, we are thrilled to announce that The Witcher remake is being worked on. That's right. The game that started it all is being rebuilt from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. The game is currently in the early stages of development at the Polish studio Fool's Theory. Oh. Fool's Theory, where veteran Witcher series staff are involved. So some of the same folks. We, as CD Projekt Red, are providing full creative supervision. So that's an interesting way of doing that. But yes, The Witcher is being remade. I don't believe that they have stated a release date or anything like that. It's still in early stages of development, but very cool. Rena asks, have you tried them fried? Yes. And I will say, fried pickles are the closest that I have come to liking pickles. But the underlying thing is the same. You can batter it up and deep fry it all you want. It's still a pickle. It's still got that taste. You can't mask it. You can't mask the flavor of a pickle. And it's fine. I've come to accept it. But I'm an adult. I know, and my dad has mentioned to me several times throughout my life, and I don't know if this is like true or one of those things that just floats around on the internet that people repeat, but I like to think it's true because it seems like it would be. It seems like one of those things that's true, is that your tastes, like your taste buds change every 7 years. And so that's why every so often you'll try foods again and like them, whereas previously you didn't like them. I don't know what sort of evolutionary reason there would be to have this feature in your mouth and your taste buds. And so with that in mind, every year at some point, I try a pickle again. I've already tried one this year and it was gross. So I'm trying, people. Same thing with tomatoes. Like, I love tomatoes cooked into things. I love tomato sauce. I even like them chopped up and chunky in like salsa and stuff. But like, just give me a raw tomato and watch me throw up because it's gross. But I am a good sport and I try one every year. I'll take a little cherry tomato, or I'll slice off a bite of a regular tomato, and it grosses me out. It's not as gross as it used to be, but still I avoid them like the plague. Rena, I'm with you there with I'm with you there with raw tomatoes. Yeah. It's snot, says Afroponics. It's not good. You know what I mean? So, but this is not James Loves Food. This is James Loves Game. But yeah, so I don't know if you knew that. I don't even know if it's true, but I am repeating it. Your taste buds change every 7 years. So I'm a good sport. I try them every year. At the very least, it's entertaining for people to watch me eat something I think is disgusting. But the Witcher remake is in development, and The Witcher 1, I think, is the one Witcher game that I haven't played. I started the series with The Witcher 2. I got it on a Steam sale many years ago for like, I want to say I got it for like $2. I don't even remember, but it was like, I'll spend $2 just to try this. And I ended up loving it and beating it. But I never played the original because I'd heard that The Witcher 2 really introduced a lot of new stuff that made it way better than the original. So the remake is well timed and well chosen. I think if you can give it a graphical upgrade, give it a gameplay upgrade in particular. This is one of those where like I could deal with the graphics from the original Witcher. I think it came out, gosh, was it 2008 maybe? That the original came out? The Witcher. 2007 is when The Witcher came out. Wow. So that probably does need a graphical upgrade. Now that I'm thinking about it. When you say 2007, you mean 2007. People like to complain about The Witcher 3 from 2015 looking kind of bleh. Go back to 2007 and it's going to be really bleh. So I think that's well timed. So kudos for them for putting that one in development. But what else we got? So that was The Witcher. I'll end with the remake, the upcoming remake that I'm most excited about. And honestly, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they went ahead and gave us this one. Super Mario RPG. One of my most beloved childhood games. And it sits in a place of honor in my heart because it is the very first RPG that I ever played. And I think at the time we had Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG. And my brother was really into Chrono Trigger. I was really into Chrono Trigger, but like as a child, and when I say child, I was like 9 maybe, but like I hated math, anything numbers. I just didn't like numbers. Like I got terrible grades in math. So if I saw any numbers on the screen, I didn't want anything to do with it. Like I was all about the action, just jump, slice, drive, whatever. I don't want to see a single number on the screen. And so it was very intimidating whenever you do an attack and then it's like all these numbers pop up and then you get attacked and your numbers get smaller. And it was like this number / a bigger number. And it's like fractions mixed with multiplication and addition and subtraction. And I just hated math. And so I didn't want anything to do with it. But Super Mario RPG, I was 9. Give me a break. Super Mario RPG, it dealt with such small numbers. I could wrap my head around it, and I could not resist the siren call of the attractive, colorful graphics and the charm of that game. And so it was my first RPG experience, and I loved it. And I've been hooked on RPGs ever since. Of course, I ended up playing Chrono Trigger right after that and loving it as well. But Super Mario RPG was accessible to a 9-year-old like me. And I loved it very much. Was I 9? I might have been older. That one came out like 95, right? Maybe I was 11. I was 11. Give me a break. But Super Mario RPG, one of my favorites of all time. One of the best games of all time. Definitely in my top 20, perhaps in my top 10, if I really, really think about it. But it's shocking. It's one that really, it's one of those that I would say it doesn't need to be remade. It's perfect the way it is, honestly. Like, as I stated earlier, the Super Nintendo era of games, they took the 2D graphics and pushed them to the max, and so they look great. And it was before you had like fully 3D worlds with like fully 3D models. Super Mario RPG actually dips its toe a little bit into 3D, which is pretty incredible on the Super Nintendo. Like, it looks really good though. Like, they pulled it off. And it's one that I don't think it needed to be remade, but I'm very happy that it is remade because the only copy I have is the original on a Super Famicom. My brother has the Super Nintendo. And so it's like that old hardware, it crumbles and breaks down eventually. And it's nice to have an updated version for modern systems that you can play at the very least. Like, they could have just ported it. They could have taken the original game, just let you download it from the eShop, and I would have downloaded it and it would have been great. But the fact they gave it a new lick of paint, and now I don't know, talking about my definitions that I made earlier between a remake and a remaster, if you could consider this just a remaster. We don't know yet, like, what sort of new content potentially is in the game. If it's going to be just like straight, like Demon's Souls, where we've taken the base game, we haven't changed a thing. All the enemies are in the same spots. All the bosses are the same. All the items are the same. And it just looks better and sounds better. In which case I would call it a remaster. But doesn't matter. It still looks great. I'm very excited to jump in and play that one. I'm very happy that a new generation of players is going to get to experience it. It's kind of hard to sell people on like a 30-year-old game at any point, you know. It's like, we've got all these great games out now, but you should go back and play this really old JRPG from the Super Nintendo about Mario. But it really is good. And some of the best game music ever. It's the most charming game I think I've ever played. It's adorable. It's totes adorbs. If you didn't know, it's so adorable, but it's a very charming game. It's got a great sense of humor, and it's cute. It's just cute. But yeah, Rena says, same here. I'm ready for that. Afroponics, I'm excited. Never played it. Rena says, maybe we'll get a new one on the new Switch. Maybe. But yeah, anyway, So Super Mario RPG, very excited about it. Very excited to relive that journey. And it's one of those games that I've played through it so many times. I have to play through it kind of like Chrono Trigger at least every like 5 years. I'll go back and play through that one. Or Link to the Past, same thing. It's one of those that like, it's not a super long game. It's definitely longer than Chrono Trigger, but I think I say definitely. It's not super long compared to modern JRPGs that are like in triple digit hours. It's not a huge undertaking. Let's see. How long? Okay. So when focusing on the main objective, Super Mario RPG is about 17 and a half hours. So 17 to 25 hours, which is a little bit longer than Chrono Trigger. I think Chrono Trigger is about 15 hours long. But you do multiple playthroughs of Chrono Trigger because it's got all these different endings. Again, take risks, game developers. Put in crazy things like multiple endings, multiple timelines, multiple stories from different viewpoints. It's great. People like that stuff. People like that kind of thing. I'm people. Anyway, so, and I'm sure there's a lot of remakes coming out soon that I've neglected to mention. I did a cursory inspection of the internet and was looking for kind of the big ones that are coming out. And those are the ones that I found, but I'm sure there are some that I've overlooked. And if I overlooked the one that you're super looking forward to, then I apologize. But yeah, Shining Lugia just tuned in. Is James finally praising Final Fantasy VII Remake? No. I compared it to pickles, and that is a very bad thing in my language. We had a discussion about pickles. Are they good? Are they not? Same thing with raw tomatoes. It's kind of gross. But, you know, I respect that people like those types of things. I respect that people like Final Fantasy VII Remake and are excited about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. What are they going to call the third one? Final Fantasy VII re-ending? I don't know. Re-death? Well, we'll just have to see. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, so thank you guys for tuning in today for today's podcast. There are lots of remakes, and, you know, I think for the most part, all the remakes that are coming out are a very good thing. With the exception of a few, excuse me, I think that The Last of Us Part 1 was kind of a bit of a cash grab. I think devs kind of get into that zone where they just start seeing dollar signs every now and then. Publishers, probably more than the devs. The people that actually make money from the game. But, you know, I think for the most part, it's a good thing. We get to sort of relive our favorite games from our childhoods and our adolescence with prettier graphics and more accessible gameplay. I'm going to be talking on Thursday about my top 10 most wanted remakes. So tune in Thursday morning. We're going to have the discussion about what do you want remade? What games need a remake? And I already gave you one. I gave you a taste. Metal Gear Solid. Excuse me. Gosh, I got something in my throat. Give me just a second. Metal Gear Solid is one that I'm very much would love. Goodness gracious. Been talking too much. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid, very much wanting. I can't say looking forward to because they've not announced that, but I would love a Metal Gear Solid remake. Shining Lugia says probably Reincarnation or something similar. Yeah, it's going to start with an R, guaranteed. But Reincarnation is probably, I'll put $10 down. You're probably right. You're probably right with that prediction. Rena says, I want 9, but I need them to just leave it alone. No weird story redo. Yeah. That's the weird balance that you have to strike with a remake. It's important to improve upon the things that need improving, but leave alone the things that are fine. Like Final Fantasy IX, really, I think you need graphical overhaul. Definitely. The music, the story, the dialogue, don't touch it. It's fine. You could update the gameplay a little bit. You know, I'm sure there are subtle things that you could add to the game to make the gameplay a little bit more engaging. I'm not talking about a full Final Fantasy VII remake overhaul. I think the combat that they put in that game was like this weird Frankenstein between turn-based and full action that I did not care for. And so I think you could still do turn-based, but just with a twist. Kind of like they did with like Octopath and a lot of other, or Chained Echoes. You know, just add a little something to the turn-based formula to really give it a new spin. But anyway, we're going to talk about all those remakes Thursday morning, so be sure and tune in for that. Tune in tonight, Tuesday, August 8th at 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time for my very first Tears of the Kingdom stream. Full disclosure, I have played probably about 20 hours or so of this game already. This is not the first time I'm playing it, so don't come in and be like, wait, you're already in the second temple. Yes, it's just the first time I'm streaming it because I've been enjoying it privately. But I think it's time to take my enjoyment public. So yeah. Shining Lugia, I can't wait for the Sekiro remake. That doesn't need a remake, man. I remember there was remade JRPG on Switch that had the original game with a brand new modern graphics, but also the option to use more polished pixel art. Can't remember what game though. I'm not sure. There was now Dragon Quest XI did do something like that. It wasn't a remake, obviously, but they did the special edition of the game and put it on Switch because it was originally on PS4. And then you had the option to play through the game in like a pixelated 2D version of the game, which still to this day blows my mind that they basically made 2 whole games in a game. I don't think that's what you're talking about, but that's still a cool feature. I like that type of thing in a remake. Give me the option to play in the original graphics or the updated graphics. I suspect they'll do that with Super Mario RPG. Nintendo is just that kind of company to give you those kind of juicy options. But we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to wait till November. And that one is a day one, folks. So tune in November for Super Mario RPG. But anyway, tune in tonight for Tears of the Kingdom. Tune in Thursday morning for my top 10 most wanted remakes. Bring your list along too. I want to know what you guys think. Put in the comments, what are you looking forward to remake-wise? The ones that have been announced. What's your favorite remake? Whatever. Just leave me a comment. Leave me a like. Please subscribe. And I'll see you next time right here on Games Remake.